Table short.
Okay, I would like to call to order the March 15th, 2023 meeting of the Town of Harwich Conservation Commission. The public may attend this meeting in person, access the meeting on the town's Channel 18, or can access the meeting remotely using the log-on information that is shown on the town website. The first item on the agenda for tonight's meeting is a presentation of a citizen's petition for this coming May town meeting for a potential ban on the use of fertilizers. Do we have anybody to speak for this petition? Okay, could you go to the microphone and introduce yourself for the record?
Yes, good evening and thank you. Patrick Otton, O-T-T-O-N, East Harwich, and I was the individual that did file the citizens petition, not for a ban on fertilizers, but regulating fertilizers for the town of Harwich, okay? So it's not a ban. So that clarify first up.
Okay, that's helpful.
Yeah. Where it gets interpreted to be a ban is that this is a multi-step process. The first step is to get the Board of Selectmen to ask the state legislature whether or not they would approve Harwich making its own decisions on fertilizer application. So there's a home rule that has to happen first, and that's from the state legislature. Okay. Already Sarah Peake and Julian Sears said they would support this effort and take it to the legislature to have Harwich have its own ability to decide fertilizer regulations rather than relying on MDR. Okay. Why? Because Beacon Hill doesn't have our kettle pools, our ponds, our embayments, our estuaries, the sandy soil.
Excuse me just for a second. The entity that you mentioned, could you define what?
MDR, yes,
Yes.
Massachusetts Department of Agricultural Resources.
Okay, thank you.
MDR.
Okay, now you can continue. I apologize.
No,
for
no,
interrupting.
that's a fair question. Sorry, we all get hung up on our acronyms.
I know, and a lot of people aren't familiar with
Yeah,
those acronyms.
that's true. Yeah, okay. So, because Beacon Hill is worried about all of Massachusetts, from Western Mass to, Boston, including Cape Cod. Cape Cod's unique in its environment and its soil and its estuaries and embayments, and we need to pay particular attention to what we're doing here. Why? Because the water here is our number one resource. It's the reason why we're all here. If we can no longer swim in our ponds, if we can no longer have shellfish, if we can no longer go fishing, we've lost why we're here. So it's critically important that we take care of where it is we live. All right? Have you all read the bylaw as proposed? Do you understand it? Do you have questions for me?
Well, I think it would be helpful to go on the record if you could just give a brief summary of what the bylaw actually does. If you want to go section by section quickly, that would be helpful
Okay.
also.
So basically, it's asking for home rule ability for Harwich to decide their own fertilizer applications. January 2021, the Board of Health tried to put out their own regulations, but by November 2021, they had to rescind that because they don't have the authority to establish regulations for fertilizer for Harwich. It's the state, it's MDR, Massachusetts Department of Agricultural Resources, that decides that. So I'm simply asking, number one, to get the select board to ask the legislature for permission. Number two, that permission has to be given. And then number three, once we have that permission, have Harwich decide what regulations to be applied. I've taken that a bit further, and I'm actually saying prohibiting the application of fertilizer in the town of Harwich except for commercial agriculture. They can continue doing whatever it is they're doing. And the residential use of only organic fertilizer with low nitrogen, phosphorus, for the use of growing fruits and vegetables, as allowed under the USDA, U.S. Department of Agriculture, National Organic Program. And OMRI is Organic Materials Review. They actually establish the limits and amounts of what fertilizer consists of, okay? So, one question that came up to me from our water department is, isn't sludge or malorganite organic? According to these regulations, the USDA and OMR, or OMRI, it is not. Sludge from sewage is not a permissible organic fertilizer, okay? It's not part of that. What is leaf compost, vegetable compost, just the stuff that you would see if you're wandering in the woods, okay? So this home rule petition asks the state legislature to allow the town of Harwich to establish its own fertilizer regulations. Beacon Hill does not have the seashore, the ponds, the embayments, the estuaries. These are all endangered by human-sourced pollution of both nitrogen and phosphorus from fertilizers. Harwich has 22 ponds, 11 miles of coastline are our life assets for all residents, property owners, visitors, and businesses of Harwich. That's the reason why we're here. We're here for the water. It's this reason that we live here, and we need to protect it and care for it. So that's why I have submitted this petition to help ensure the safety of Harwich's water. Already, Nantucket has passed this, Orleans passed this in their fall meeting last year. I'm proposing for Harwich now to follow suit and also pass it at town meeting, okay? There's extensive notes in here that I think I could read and go through, but it's all within the concept of caring about where it is we live, why we're here in the first place, and what we need to do to preserve it instead of losing it. This is not an urban environment. This is a natural environment. Nature's already figured out how to care for Cape Cod, our woodlands. Walk through the woods, they're thriving. They don't need fertilizers. It's when humans show up and begin wanting their urban settings that fertilizers are applied and fertilizers are causing the problem. So I'm just asking we recognize where it is we live, why we're here, what we need to appreciate, and save it before it's lost, okay? That's the basic motivation here.
Okay, before we go into discussion, I would just like to ask a question for clarification to make sure that I heard correctly. If I heard correctly, you are asking for a ban with certain exceptions in this article to go to town meeting. Should the town get permission from the legislature to make its own regulations?
Yes.
Okay,
Now-
that's what I wanted to
Yeah,
clarify. Thank you very much.
You know, so I need to be flexible on this as well. So I've set the end goal. Let's not apply fertilizers unless it's a commercial agricultural resource or if you're planting fruits and vegetables.
Right,
That's,
and you're putting that in
that's
the
in-
article that
it's-
would be voted on at town meeting?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I just wanted to clarify
Yeah.
that for my own understanding. Thank you.
yeah.
Now,
No,
I would like to have some discussion, and I would like to start with Amy. Do you have any comments on this that you would like to share with the rest of us, please?
Sure, thank you. I'm going to take this in two parts. I'm going to take your initial request as far as asking, being able for the Board of Selectmen and the town of Harwich to be able to request the state legislature asking for that home rule ability. I am in agreement with that. I think your rationale in terms of, you know, it's not just Cape Cod, but Harwich itself has extremely high groundwater. We have extremely coarse soils. I'm going to put Lynn Hamlin on the spot in the back there. Lynn and I like to chat about how wonderful the Harwich soils are. So very high groundwater, very coarse, porous sand. I definitely think that the Cape, Harwich included, should be able to make their own rules and regulations when it comes to the application of chemicals on properties. So that's kind of an overarching statement. So part one, I'm in complete agreement with, is that the Cape, Harwich should be requesting that we have this ability to make our own rules and regulations that might be stricter than the state rules. Part two, as far as going all the way towards a more strict, a regulation or a prohibition on the application, I'm not ready to voice support for that just yet, just because I do think we need to take this piece by piece and get that ability first, and then have greater outreach in the town of Harwich to see what the citizens of the town of Harwich, and look at more at the science and see what the citizens really want to do, as well as, and the experts in this field. The town is currently working on part of this team to come up with better homeowner, practices for everybody in this town about, if you're going to use things, how you should be doing them, other plant materials you should use, things like that. So I feel like the town is moving in a good direction, and really thank you
Education's
for.
a huge part of this.
Education's a big part.
Yeah.
So, I definitely am in favor and would recommend that we go forward and ask the selectmen, ask the town of Harwich and town meeting to be able to go and ask for home rule ability from the legislature. But take that one piece at a time and maybe come back in another year once we have a better time, to more outreach and whatnot, to formulate what those rules might be.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, now to members of the board. Wayne?
Yeah, I kind of tend to agree with Amy about, checking out with the state first, but, because I'm not too keen on restricting residential use just to organic fertilizers, for people who want to have gardens, but we can discuss that after we find out whether or not the state will let us do it anyway, so.
Okay, fine. Alan?
If this was to be approved by the town, who would monitor this? Who would supervise this? Who would make sure that folks are not bringing in contraband from Yarmouth to do their fertilization in Harwich? The same thing I think about is the bottle, the spring bottle
Yeah.
act. You still see bottles all over the place. So I'd like to know who you think should supervise this. And then also, fertilizer is a makeup of 3 different compounds: nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. One thing I may think about is maybe we lessen the nitrogen level on that compound for folks to use, because at certain levels, you do need some of this elements to make certain things grow. You speak about agriculture, which is good, glad of that, and you speak about organic fertilizers for gardens and such. But I don't know what those chemical compounds are, and I don't know where that is. And then, what about golf courses? That's a municipality.
Yeah.
So what is the idea and thought about managing the golf courses or public school athletic fields?
At this point, they would fall underneath this proposal, yeah.
I'm just throwing those things out. Thank you.
Okay, Brad?
Got a question on how this connects to the recent effort that I think went before the Board of Public Health on, I think, a similar concept. Is this approach, is it related? How does it differ?
So, the Board of Health did bring this not only within their group for decision, they decided to take to the Select Board. It came before the Select Board, and the Select Board tabled it. So they wouldn't take a position on it. So there was a lot of opposition by the landscapers and people doing that type of work that said, no way, you can't do that to us, so.
Yeah. So same proposal, this time you're going to go to town meeting.
So this time I'm saying, good, it's gone through the Board of Health, they supported it, they took it to the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Selectmen tabled it. I said, well, if you're not gonna do anything, I feel I will take it forward and bring it to the town meeting for Harwich to decide.
Okay.
Yeah.
My second question, so in Orleans, they got approval to go to change their status with the state system. Is their end goal similar to yours within that proposal? Is it the same?
This is almost a duplicate copy of what Orleans had and Nantucket. So far for Orleans, town meeting approved this as written. So now it needs to take that first step going from the select board to the legislature for approval if Orleans can or cannot make their own decisions,
Okay.
okay?
Well, I personally thank you for your efforts. I support both the front end and the back end goal. I just think if you could produce a graph somehow that shows the changes in the water quality for our ponds, our estuaries, our beaches in the last 30 years, and put on that same graph the increase in the way people treat their lawns and
Yeah,
add
interesting.
chemicals. It's a remarkable change, in my opinion, and it's something that could be reversed without great hardship to individuals and with immediate impacts to our water bodies. So I support what you're doing. Thank you.
Yeah, you know, fertilizers came into use after World War II, and the chemical industry, wanting more money, more outlets, said, let's push fertilizers, and then, you know, that's revenue. So that's mentality has been set in our heads since the 50s, and you can see it, right? So,
Thank you. Your effort is positive, but I gotta say, I don't agree with it, and I'll tell you why. I think there's adequate regulation regarding the topic as it stands. There's already licenses in place. I think the effort needs to be put forth on public education, and I think the whole circumstance can be better served if it's approached differently. And I wish it would be approached differently. I can't support this particular idea, but I do appreciate your effort, sir.
well, thank you. And I hear what you're saying as well. Education's a huge part of it, yeah.
Okay. Dan?
I guess the only problem is, I mean, just like other things at town meeting, what you stated in the beginning when you walked in versus what I'm reading in here are two different things.
Help me understand that,
Well,
please.
you said it's not a ban, I don't, when you read this, where is it clear that it's up to people or the select board to make decisions? It makes it sound like it's coming across, it's just for agricultural and local gardening. I mean, that's what a person would focus on right there. So, I mean, there might be more into what you're saying, but it's confusing to me.
Yeah, again, it's a multi-step process, so I struggle with that as well, okay?
Well, you'd really struggle at town meeting, because you know what town meetings are like. I mean,
Yeah.
We've had things come before the town where, because it's not clear, they get voted down.
Yeah.
So, that's my only comment.
Okay, thank you, Stan. Sophia?
I have one question, and some comments. If we do get the home rule, does that mean that we have to take advantage of that? You know, if you ask for it, do you have to move to that? Does that make any sense?
Don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know the answer to that, but if we have, yeah,
Excuse me, Sophia, maybe I can help you with that. If we get the home rule petition, it means that the control of fertilizers will be local with the town.
Okay.
So that means any regulations regarding fertilizers will have to be voted by the town.
Okay, thank you.
So it's not mandatory that we change anything, but if we're going to do anything at all, it would have to be just through the town.
Okay, thank you.
correct, I agree.
I have a hard time with this because I am on board with the intent 100%, but there's a lot in here that is both vague and decisive in a funny way that I'm just not comfortable with supporting. I agree that education is huge. I think that there's a part of this where, like, when you put something forward that is a ban, you're gonna lose people that otherwise you might not lose. If you're looking to encourage certain practices, have better application, talk to homeowners for what they should ask their landscapers for. I just think that there's a big section of the population that's gonna see a ban and not like it. And I'm on the fence. I said this before, I drink my Harwich well water unfiltered, thank you very much. And I care a lot about the environment. I work in the business also, though, so I can kind of see both sides, and I think we all should be headed in this direction. I worry that this is too vague. I don't know who would be making the rules. Is it somebody, what if I don't agree at all with the people who end up making the rules who only want me to use leaf mulch. I don't agree with that in terms of gardening practices. I think there's a lot of nuance and a lot of science that gets kind of left behind. But that's valuable. So I appreciate what you're doing, and I honestly, I'm on your side, but I don't, I don't like the way that that it comes across. I think it's not gonna be effective.
Okay, thank you. Before we go to open comments, I'd just like to make a few comments myself. I agree completely with Amy with regard to the fact that I think it's a good idea that any rules or regulations with regard to this be determined locally. Therefore, I would support the part of this that would have a home rule petition that would have the decisions on this issue made on the local level. However, when you go beyond into your second section, I think the second section may be written a little bit overly broad, and I would be a little bit concerned that if it were to pass, it would not withstand a court challenge. I also, from the point of view of the Conservation Commission, think that this goes way beyond, this affects essentially the entire town of Harwich. Our jurisdiction is within certain areas defined by distances from wetlands and waterways and things of that. Therefore, from the point of view of the Conservation Commission, I'm not comfortable with the Conservation Commission taking, a real stand on this.
Okay.
Okay,
Well,
so.
For the town of Harwich, what is our distance above the aquifer on average?
What do you mean distance above?
Well, from ground level to the aquifer, what is that distance?
I don't
typically?
know.
There's different, so you have a top layer, that's your top layer, and then you have the clay layer, and you have water much farther down.
Right.
So there's two water tables, if you will.
So typically, what is that
Oh.
distance?
I don't know.
I don't know either, but
No, I know.
if you're asking that question with regard to my comment, our jurisdiction does not go with a distance from the aquifer. It goes from surface water, ponds, streams, lakes, wetland areas, marshes, et cetera. So it's really surface as opposed to the aquifer.
And the surface water does not or does mix with the aquifer?
In some places it does.
Yeah.
Well, it does mix with groundwater.
I've always been confused. Personally, you have limits and distances of application of various chemicals from water, right? But if the aquifer's only a few feet below you, you can still apply because, oh yeah, I'm still that far away from.
I'm talking about our regulations, which
Yeah.
is distances from wetlands,
Yeah,
waterways, lakes, ponds, streams, coastal banks, et cetera.
yeah.
And that's what our regulations with regard to our jurisdiction.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
that helps.
Now, is there anybody in the audience that has any questions or comments? Is there anybody online that has any questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, I want to thank you for your presentation. Unless anybody on the board disagrees with me, I think that our best position would be just to take this under advisement for now and, continue to monitor your progress as this goes towards town meeting.
No, and that's why I'm here. I need your feedback. I need to understand,
And we appreciate your
Yes.
coming to us to letting us know.
and it's wonderful that I can come and
You're
try
always
this.
welcome.
So I appreciate. I'll mention on a side, I also have a citizen's petition banning lighter-than-air balloons. I don't know if that falls within
I
your.
don't think that's within our jurisdiction.
No, well, just because you'll find them on waterways, you find them on ponds, but
Yeah.
that's another issue. I just
Okay.
mentioned it.
Well, thank you very much
Thank
for
you
your
very much.
presentation.
Thank you, Patrick.
Okay, I would now like to move on to the next issue on the agenda, which is a request for a change in plan for the Harwich Conservation Trust Coal Brook Preservation map 23, parcel C3-2, C1-0, and C1-1, SE 32-2505. Is there anybody to speak, here to speak for the applicant? Hearing nobody to speak for the applicant, I would like,
No, there is.
oh, there is, okay.
Mr.
Is Michael on?
Mike and Nick Nelson?
Okay, could you introduce yourself if you're on? Because right now, we're not hearing anybody. Mike, are you there?
Can you hear anybody?
Yeah, now I
Yes.
can hear somebody. Could you introduce yourself, please?
Yep. Sure. Michael was trying to speak. Mike, do you want to try again?
Sure. Can everybody hear me?
Okay, now we can hear you, Michael.
Oh, great. All right. Thanks.
Okay, could you
Michael
just
Locke, Executive Director, Harwich Conservation Trust. Thanks, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, and Amy Uzowski, Town Conservation Administrator. We appreciate returning to your agenda relative to the Colebrook Ecological Restoration Project to review this change in plan that'll be presented by Nick Nelson, our point person in this eco-restoration planning process through his firm, Interfluve.
Mr. Chairman,
Great. Thanks, Mike.
I'm going to recuse.
So this is, as described in the cover letter and in the drawing presented as well. This is essentially showing the areas where we're depositing extra excavated material on the site. So through the restoration actions, we'll be digging out a new channel and new ponds, as you know, as you reviewed earlier. And that excavated material will go into filling ditches on the bog platform, but there'll be extra excavated material that was planned for the sand reuse areas. And if I could share my screen, maybe I can point to some of these locations. So let me try to do that. Great. Can you see my screen okay?
Yes.
Excellent. So this area outlined with the green polygon here and the red polygon here were identified in the approved drawings as sand reuse areas. And that was the area to deposit the extra material. And this change that we are presenting today expands this area of sand reuse a little bit to the southeast, I guess it is. And it's still in an area of mostly sand on the ground surface there. There's a couple of pine trees, but it's mostly unforested through there, similar to the opposite side of the trail. And what this shows now is the sand piled up to the elevation now that we have the final quantities understood. So in this area here, outlined by red, the hill that would be, or the mound that would be created with this extra material would be about 5 feet above the existing ground with 3-to-1 side slopes. And the area outlined in green would be about 12 feet above the existing ground at its highest with 3-to-1 side slopes as well. And in working with the Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program, who is in charge of working up, we developed a box turtle protection plan with them. They're pretty interested in the sandy substrate that's around here for turtle nesting habitat. And so these side slopes would be sandy for that turtle nesting habitat in this area. And then the other areas of fill would be, again, areas within the limits of disturbance already, not changing the resource areas at all, So we are already planning to fill the tailwater pond that's over in this area. And this proposed change is simply to add more material on top of that, so that we can get rid of the remaining material on site. And so in this area of purple, the top elevation would be approximately 6 to 7 feet above the existing trail at its highest points, and then sloping down gradually to the west here. And then there'd be additional material between these areas, which is outlined in blue here, just a few feet above the existing ground in those locations. The trails would still be maintained, just at a higher elevation in these locations. And then the trail at the sort of base ground elevation would be altered to go around this red polygon here and continue on where it is right now. So you'd have the option of walking around this mound, or potentially walking up on top and having a different view of the landscape through here. So as I explained in the cover letter, again, there's no change to impact to resource areas here, no change in the end ecosystem of these areas. These areas were already going to be upland locations, and they're still going to be upland. It's just the elevations have changed, and this addition in area to this sand reuse area. Mike, was there anything else you wanted to add to that?
You covered it, Nick. Thank you.
Sure. Amy, was there anything you wanted to
Okay.
add to that?
Well, before we get into discussion, I'd like to ask Amy if she has any comments on this matter.
No, I suggested that they come in front of you for a change in plan, as they had quite a bit of more fill once they got farther into the planning process. They realized they had more material that they needed to reuse on site. And they proposed to use it in existing proposed sand reuse areas. As they said, it's just going to be a little bit higher, a little bit wider in locations. I think they'll provide actually very nice vantage points for people to look out over the entire project and the restoration going forward. They're not taking what would be wetland and filling it. It was all going to be upland anyways. The slopes are at 3:1, are stable slopes, and I would recommend approval of the plan change.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Okay, now I'll ask board members for any comments. And I'll start with Sophia this time.
No comments, looks good to me.
Okay, Stan?
No comment.
Mark?
I do have a question. I don't see a particular issue with the recontouring that you're suggesting, but I'm wondering what you're gonna do with the water out of the tailwater farm pond when that hole is filled in. How are you gonna handle that?
Yeah, so we'll work with the selected contractor on a water control plan for the site. I suspect that there could be a combination of pumping that water out prior to filling. It's probably the best and cleanest way of doing so. There could also be, I could imagine, a scenario where they begin to fill the far side of the tailwater pond, and that would subsequently push the water out of the tailwater pond through the pipe that's there right now. And there would need to be appropriate, turbidity controls to make sure that, turbidity wasn't leaving the pond for that to happen. But we'll work directly with the contractor to come up with that water control plan.
Okay. Given the time of year, I understand the project's slated to start May, June, is that right?
Yeah, we hope to be able to go out to bid in the next month or so. So that's that timing that you mentioned, given the bid process and pre-construction submittals, May, June timeframe is what we're hoping for.
Okay. Brad, I'm going to include you on this question with the exchange of that water being dispersed, coming with this time of year, can that impact anything that would be coming back up the creek on a normal basis?
It could. My expectation would be that the project would not be allowed to discharge that water into the brook in the month of May, and possibly June 15th. So I think that would be a factor.
Yep, and we do have a time of year restriction until June 15th. So there would not be able to be any turbid water entering the main flow of the stream during that time frame.
Thank you. Okay, Brad?
No further comments?
Okay. Are there any comments from members of the audience? Any comments from anybody else that's online? Okay, hearing none, I would like to call for a positive motion on this matter. Does anybody have motion on this matter?
You've spoiled this for so long, Jim. You know. I'll make a motion to approve the request for a change of plan for the Harwich Conservation Trust, Colebrook Preserve, map 23, parcels C3-2, C1-0, and C1-1.
I'll second.
Okay, now, two of our members have excused themselves due to potential conflict of interest, and they have left the room. So I will just call for a vote of those members of the board that are in the room today. All those in favor of the motion on the floor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And I'll say aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous, the motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, before we
Great.
continue,
Thank you very much for your time.
Amy, if you could
Thank you.
get Wayne and Alan, and then when they come back into the room, we'll continue with the next matter.
Yeah, you've been so good to make motions for so long. It's-
Really?
Everybody's out of,
Yeah.
What month do the yields come back in that, Jim?
They're coming up, the time of year closure for them is basically March 15th to June 15th. That's why the meeting's already got that. And you do not want to see that.
No question
Okay.
about it.
now that we have our full board back here in the room, I would like to continue with the next matter, which again is a request for a change in plan for 45 Neal Road, map 16, parcel N1-41, RDA 2022-10. Is there anybody in the room to speak for the applicant? Is there anybody online?
Through the chair, Sean Riley, Coastal Engineering, representing the applicant.
Fine, thank you. Go ahead.
Yes, along with me is Jennifer Crawford from Crawford Land Management. Just to give you guys a quick refresher of where we are, this is that unique property on 45 Neal Road that is in the middle of the subdivision that had that unique coastal bank that surrounded the low area on the property. We came before you with this plan, which was approved for a proposed pool patio, retaining wall, and some grading, along with mitigation that was provided with that. I'll just give you the changes. Sorry. Technical difficulties.
Your end or our end?
Yeah, my end.
Okay.
The little things, the controls are in my way of switching of toggling. There we go. All right. Sorry about that. Can you see the colored screen here with the green and the red?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So essentially what they've done is reconfigured everything to pull it up tighter to the house, eliminated the retaining wall, reduced the coverage by 635 square feet. And we have provided a modified mitigation. This was the original mitigation planting plan with the retaining wall. Crawford has come up with the revised mitigation planting plan, which you can see covers the entire area. The limit of work has not changed. This should be pretty straightforward. We've got a reduction of coverage and everything's pulled in, and we were able to eliminate that large retaining wall that some of you had questions about last time. So with that, I'll just open it up to any questions you may have.
Okay, before we go into questions, I would like to ask Amy if she has any comments on this matter.
I would recommend approval of the plan change. It's a reduction in hardscape from what you originally permitted. As he said, the wall that you were concerned about at the last meeting is coming out, and I agree with the planting plan.
Okay, now I'll go to board members, and this time we'll start with Wayne. Do you have any comments?
No comment.
Alan?
No comment.
Brad?
None.
None.
Mark? Dan? Sophia? And I have no comments. Are there any comments from anybody in the audience? Any comments from anybody else that's online? Okay, if I hear no additional comments or questions, I'm going to ask for a positive motion on this matter.
I'll move for approval of project number 2022-10.
Okay, and this is for a change in plan, correct, Mark?
Yes.
Second.
Okay, and this is for 45 Neal Road, map 16, parcel N1-41.
Yes.
Okay, and so do you accept that as part of, as
Yes, I
an
do.
addition to your motion, Mark?
Yes.
Does the seconder
Second.
accept that? Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? With no opposition, and the vote is unanimous, and this change in plan is approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Have a great night.
Me too.
Okay, I'd like to go on to the next item on the agenda. It's a request, it's a notice of intent for 5 Paramara, and correct me if I'm wrong on the pronunciation. Panorama Point Drive, map 91, parcel G2-7. Could you please introduce yourself? to the
My
record?
name is, excuse me, is Peter Van Dyke. My wife, Ann Foster's in the back, and Mark is my engineer.
Okay, and now you can proceed with your presentation.
Yeah. Those are always a little precarious. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. For the record, I'm Mark Burgess of Shorefront Consulting, representing the applicants who are in the audience here for this project. The simplest form of the project is simply a set of access stairs with one landing over an inland bank and a seasonal dock out in the water. Similar to another project in that pond that was passed a number of years ago. The dock has 7 sections of 40 feet, so it's 280 square feet. It extends 55 feet beyond the ordinary high water mark. There's 3 feet at the end where 2.5 feet is required. And there are no adjacent structures nearby. The project was reviewed and supported by Waterways on September 19th, 2022. I have a copy of the plan that they signed, just in case anybody would want to see it. So moving up, the stairs are 36 feet from Seagull's view, and the landing is about halfway down. Yeah, halfway down. That's for both what we call a rest stop and for safety. So you, in theory, only fall halfway down instead of all the way down. They're 4 feet wide, and they're designed to land on top of the dock. So the dock is above the ordinary high water line, so the stairs, when the dock is removed, the stairs can just stay there and in midair, so to speak. But they'll land on the dock, so the stairs don't go into the water. So this is for private boating access on Hinckley's Pond. So on the plan to the, I guess, south, there's an easement. And that easement is for other association members. So it's on the property that belongs to the applicant, but it's for access for the other people in the association that don't have waterfront access. And that's, what, four? Yes. 4 people. So there's no control over who uses it, I guess, but that's what it's for, the remaining association members. This is sited in the middle of the lot, and it actually aims right between 2 trees. If you were there, there's enough room to squeeze this in between those 2 trees. So we also filed with National Heritage. I checked the wrong box on the notice of intent form, but National Heritage corrected me. So this is in priority habitat, not estimated habitat, and the estimated habitat is what would relate to the Wetlands Protection Act. And Amy can probably explain this better than I can, but the bottom line is, the letter that we got back from National Heritage said that it doesn't affect anything in the Wetlands Protection Act, and it's okay for you guys to issue an order. So that part is completed and done. The priority habitat has its own separate review with MISA, and they've requested some more information on a plant. Now, this is separate from the proceedings here, but just letting you know that that proceeds separately.
Excuse me for a second, Mark.
Yeah.
The entity that you mentioned, could you just describe what that is? I think you used an acronym for that.
MISA is
Yes.
Massachusetts Endangered Species Act,
Okay, thank you.
and they're looking for a specific plant. So in coming time, the plant will have to be identified whether it's there or not, and if it is, whatever, I don't know. So,
Okay.
but that's separate from the Wetlands Protection Act. And we have a consultant that's gonna be doing that, who is gonna be qualified with National Heritage and all that. So that's all being handled. It's all good. There is a variance submitted for work within 50 feet of the resource area for a water-dependent structure. That is kind of the project. Now, subsequently, between the time we filed and tonight, Amy informed us that she did not agree with the top of bank location, and that it needs to be changed to the ordinary annual high water mark, which is down toward the base of the bank. So you'll end up, on the plan, it'll be, see if this works. Top of bank is now about here, and it'll be lowered down to the water, which simply means that the staircase as drawn is in a resource area, but it'll be in the 0 to 50 buffer. And the 50 line is right about here. So that's forthcoming. We weren't able to get that done before tonight. And then mitigation, this could be my bad. It's a water-dependent structure, so I hadn't thought about mitigation per se. The stairway is designed to go over the vegetation, not through it, so it doesn't have any negative impacts to the vegetation, so I wasn't thinking of mitigation. Having said that, that's one thing we should discuss tonight, so moving forward, we know what to do. So we will be asking for a continuance, 1 for the revised plan, and 2 for any mitigation or how we're gonna accomplish that based on tonight's discussion. I have done some calculations. We can deal with that in a little bit. I've done some calculations for square footages based on the 4-to-1 and a 3-to-1 mitigation planting. I think you would agree that this potentially falls under one of the categories in your new regulations about a constricted site. Is that, yeah? Meaning it's all natural, so there's like no place to put extra plants because it's never been altered before. If you agree with that reasoning, that's no problem. I've done a in lieu fee calculation, $4 per square foot, and that can certainly be provided so that another wetland resource area can be improved other than this one. That's basically it, so with that, I'll open it to Amy.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Amy, do you have comments or questions on this?
Sure. First, in regards to the heritage and the MISA, Mark is correct that Natural Heritage has essentially signed off on this. It is MISA that has additional requirements. So there is, for that purpose, there's no reason for conservation to hold up a decision tonight. However, we do have the outstanding issue of needing a revised plan because the definition for top of inland bank is either the first observable break in slope, which is what you did, or the mean annual high water line of the pond, whichever is lower. So the mean annual high water line of the pond is lower than the first observable actual break in slope here, meaning your top of bank, my guess is, or if you're looking at your contours, you're gonna be pretty close to elevation 30. You know, it's very, there's just that little bit of a gap at the bottom. So you're gonna have a very close to the edge of pond, slightly higher, I believe, for your top of bank there. And all that does is it puts, like Mark said, the staircase, instead of being in the resource area, being in the 0 to 50 foot buffer zone, and it would change your lines, which I would request that you put the 50 and 100 foot buffer zone lines on that revised plan, since you're already revising your wetland line, and those lines don't show up on this plan. The staircase meets our regulations for staircases to over banks in that it's a raised staircase, it's at least 18 inches above the grade with spacing. The seasonal dock itself is gonna be on just pads on the bottom. They're not drilling anything or driving anything in, it's just gonna rest on the bottom. It is below our size requirement. It has at least 3 feet of water at the end. Where would you store it in the off-season? Have you thought of that yet?
I don't know if you've been on the property, but there's a shed that's maybe 150 feet away, 200 feet
Okay.
away. Maybe lean it up against the side of that if it will lean, otherwise we'll put it right next to it.
But kind of in a flattish area up top there, in an area that's cleared.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I've been there a couple times
Okay,
now. Took a couple people there today from the commission,
Oh, good.
actually, too. That's great, because we would require that it be stored in, upland anyway, so I just wanted to hear what your thoughts were. It went through waterways, is more than 65 feet from any adjacent structures. There's actually no adjacent structures within
Hundreds.
anywhere near it.
Yeah, I couldn't, yeah.
Yeah,
It's nothing.
they are less than 25 feet from a property line, however, that is more, I don't think that is an issue here. And that is really borne on concerns about navigation. The harbor master had no concerns about that. You have no other structures or moorings anywhere near this, so. And for the mitigation, so this site, for anybody who's been there, is extremely natural. Thank you for being really great stewards of your property. Minimal invasive, really actually no invasives, maybe a few up closer to the house, but very much in a natural state. And wouldn't want to see you necessarily add anything to that because it's a steep bank, but it's stable enough.
Yeah.
It would be very hard to get new plants to take on that slope, so I wouldn't want to mess with it. So I do think that this would be what would be considered a mitigation constrained site, because your entire area within your 100-foot buffer is really, other than the walking path you have there, is really undisturbed. So in my mind, this would be a candidate for an in lieu fee as mitigation, so we can improve other wetland resources in this town.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
I'll now ask for comments from members of the board. We'll start with Sophia on this one.
I see your pattern here, you're alternating.
Just gonna mess it up next time.
That's why I don't sit on the end.
I sit wherever Amy puts my
You want to sit in
sign.
the middle next time, Sophia?
Yes, please. Are the stairs wood? Or are they aluminum?
The stairs would be wood.
The stairs are wood, the
Regular
dock.
carpentry construction.
I don't really have any comments. My only thought is that I am familiar with the banks of Hinckley's Pond, and it's nice and mossy, and the only thing that would come to mind is, if the the stairs get slippery, just being mindful of what you use to power wash or, you know, anti-algae stuff, just being careful of anything like that. But otherwise, it looks great.
Okay, thank you. Stan?
No comments.
Mark?
No comments.
Brad?
Question for Amy. So in terms of mitigation for inland water dependent structures, did this come about with the new regulation changes that redefine mitigation? Because I don't recall really looking at staircase mitigation previously.
We didn't really we just said any new structures in a wetland,
Yeah,
which would be the dock here, is
Right.
4 to 1. Any new structures in the 0 to 50,
Yep.
which a staircase would be a structure,
right.
3 to 1.
Okay, so it's the new regs
Yeah.
that's causing this to come into focus.
Yep.
Okay, well then I agree with your analysis. I don't think there's much you can do on the site
No.
in terms of mitigating.
Alan?
I think it's a good project. I wish you well with it. I just had a question about the boat size, about the boat dock. Isn't Hinckley's Pond allowed to have boats and engines in it, or is it supposed to only be electric and so many horsepower?
Excuse me, allowed to have a boat with a, and allowed to drive 5 miles an hour. There's some good-sized party boats out there, but not, I mean, I don't know how they're powering it with a 6 horsepower engine, but
Well, yeah, no, I
I
understand.
don't intend to get one of those, but
Right.
You don't have to go fast on that.
yeah, exactly, you don't have to go very far.
Well, I just wanted to ask that, because I knew there was some limitations on it, I just didn't know what that limitation was, so thank you for that. Good luck. Yeah.
Okay, Wayne?
No comment.
Okay, are there any comments or questions from anybody in? Are there any comments or questions from anybody online? Hearing none, before we go to a motion, I'd just like to ask the applicant, you're requesting a continuance. Do you have a concept as to when you would be ready to come back to us?
If the only thing we have to do is change the top of bank and and put the 50 and 100
The
foot.
buffers and calculate what that in lieu fee would likely be. I think that's where we're
I
headed.
did that, I can present that tonight. If your math agrees with mine, then we.
Well, it's gonna be $4 per square foot, so.
Well, I drew,
pretty-
in AutoCAD, I drew a polyline around everything, including the
All
public
right,
access
what'd you come up
stairs.
with?
I came up with 424 square feet, times 4 is $1,696.
Okay,
And we can agree, you know.
I'm not
Um,
gonna argue with.
So, yeah, if that's the only thing, I think the next meeting should cover that. I can get this
Yeah.
from.
The next meeting is April 5th. Now, Amy, when do you need stuff submitted
So
to
that's
you?
3 weeks from now, because it's a 5 Wednesday month, so you actually have 2 weeks to get it to us, so 2 weeks from today, we would need it, because the meeting would be 3 weeks from today.
Okay, so with
I
that
think
in
it-
mind,
yeah.
is April 5th still a good date for the applicant?
It's good for me.
Good for me.
Okay.
Okay. Then if I could hear a motion for continuance until our meeting on April 5th?
I'll move for continuance for, what is it? For 5 Panorama Point. Map 91, parcel G27, to May 5th, April 5th.
April 5th, okay? Do I hear a second for that motion?
Second.
Okay, any discussion on the motion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's any opposed? Hearing none opposed, that's unanimous. On April 5th.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, the next item on our agenda has to do with an enforcement order for 117 and 123 Riverside Drive. Amy, could you speak to this matter, please?
Sure, and I believe, is
the
there
a- is the
anybody
applicant in the
online
audience?
also who would speak to 117 and 123 Riverside Drive? Okay. I did hear back from their landscape, person who, I worked with on this, so, and I heard that to go forward with what I had shown, so I'm prepared to go over that with you, if you would like to.
Yeah, if you would, please.
Really, I'm kind of disappointed that, other than this is a pretty big violation, that the owner has not been present, with the exception of that first enforcement meeting for this. I mean, we didn't write an enforcement that they had to come tonight, but it would have been very helpful, I think, to myself and their landscaper who, you know, tried very hard. This is really like enforcement and is really not what they normally do. So I'm gonna pass out a couple of plans because you received in your packet a plan that looks like this, which does show in the red the areas that were pretty much disturbed in the plan, on this plan. However, recently went through the previous plan. I thought I had 3, but you can have these. I'll need these back. Share, please. There's 3 of them.
Yep.
So I'll just walk you through it once you open it up. So what this is, the base plan here is the plan that this Conservation Commission approved last year or so for the initial work that was done on this property and the initial violation that was done on this property, which was clearing within the 200-foot riverfront area, within the 100 to 200-foot riverfront area completely without permit. The base of this plan shows the area that had to get revegetated and how. So when we took the plan, when Tabitha from Davenport Farms and I went out to the site, the plan that she created was the areas that were pretty much disturbed. However, a lot of those areas already have to be replanted. They were kind of sparser to begin with. So those areas already had to be replanted per this plan. So what instead I suggested is there are 9 trees that are proposed to be replanted. The commission required 7. We are in agreement on 9, a mix of oak and shadbush serviceberry, and we located them in approximately an area where trees had been removed. The oaks in areas that have a larger area to grow that actually could become canopy trees, and the shadbush serviceberry have been put in locations that are barer but would not support a new canopy tree. They would support an understory tree, which is what serviceberry is. And that's split between 117 and 123 Riverside Drive. 117 Riverside Drive is a neighboring property that Mr. Sullivan, who owns 123, disturbed without authorization from from that owner, as well as without Conservation Commission approval. So you'll see there's also a total of 40 additional shrubs in the outlined pink area on the plan I just gave you, which is where there was disturbance on the neighboring property as well. My recommendation to you is that Mr. Sullivan be issued a new enforcement order that he has to plant what he was supposed to plant by last spring, as well as these new additional plantings by June 1st of 2023. Or there will be further enforcement action from this commission.
Okay, thank you very much, Amy. I'd like to have discussion on the board now. Wayne, do you have any comments on this matter?
No, I'm in agreement with what Amy's putting forth. Yep.
Okay, Alan?
No comment, no?
Brad?
Yeah, question for Amy. The pink spot here on the north side of the triangle property, quite a few bushes being proposed to be planted there. Is there potential to have that spot migrate to more low bush, very little canopy?
This is what's going to be done there, not what you have.
Okay, so this is not going forward tonight.
This is what we'd be talking about.
Okay. And so, just to, sorry to revisit this, but
Sure.
those, it looks like that there are a fair number of trees in that spot. And that's, okay, that's good news, because my concern is I think the intent here is to slowly kind of get rid of things that are obstructing a viewscape. And a lot of the illegal activity is for that purpose. So, okay, so we're not voting
We're
on that
not
one.
going with that other one. This is what I have, after I got that, we regrouped, myself and their landscape person. I proposed this, and she agreed with it.
Good, thank you, Amy.
Okay. Mark?
Do you recall the total number of trees that were taken out, not just from this new section, but the other section, the replanting from last year that wasn't done? The
I
combination
don't,
of the
so
two?
this newer violation in this past year, we counted, there was disagreement. I counted 12. We settled, because there were some that were like little
Yep.
guys. So we settled on a requirement of 7. But for the last time, I don't know, and I don't think we really can't know, because it was about how many trees were actually cut down in the 1 to 200 foot riparian area, because they weren't just, it was completely excavated, so I couldn't, and that's why all the areas, there's gonna be, right now, there's lawn there, and there can't be lawn there.
Would it be reasonable to assume that we calculate how many trees are in a like-sized area and issue
I
a
think-
fine appropriately for all the damage that was done?
We've already issued fines previously for that old violation, back when the 100 to 200 foot riverfront area was cleared. We already issued fines, and we already approved this restoration plan to fix it.
Okay, well, it hasn't gone forward. What do we do about that? How do we,
Well, that's why I was saying issue a new enforcement order to say, so his order of conditions is what said he had to do it in spring of 2022. His order of conditions said that. He didn't do it. So now, in my view, you should issue an enforcement order to give it a little more teeth, to say you have to do this by this date.
well, I guess that's what I'm getting to. It's now a year overdue,
Understood?
and it's time to make it right, so.
Yep.
I'm just looking for a vehicle to get there.
I would suggest if it is not done by June 1st, there would be daily fines.
Okay. Thank you.
Stan?
No additional comment.
Sophia?
I agree with Mark. I think this is dragging out. Obviously, I've missed the whole first part of it, but it seems rather egregious, and I don't think it's right that it should be overlooked.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like to see at least, I mean, June 1st is generous. If they're just sitting on a lawn there where there once were trees.
I was just thinking growing,
Yeah,
April, May, have it done by June 1st. But maybe, I mean, if you want to put a tighter time frame on that, you can do that.
Okay, I have no additional comments, but I think June 1st is reasonable. If there's no more comments from the board, are there any comments from any of the people in the audience? Are there any comments from anybody online? Hearing none, Amy, do we need a motion on this?
I
issue,
would,
the
yes,
enforcement
please.
order?
I would recommend that you approve the plan in front of you this evening. I think I have a March, and we can officially date it March 15th, 2023, revision, and to issue an enforcement order to complete the new activities on this plan, as well as to do the rest of his planting that he was required. And the file number, just so you have it, if you want it for the motion, complete the planting as required in SE 32-2478.
2478?
Yep, as well as additionally plant the additional 9 trees and 40 shrubs as outlined in the revised plan here tonight.
Okay. So, I'd like to call for a motion to that effect.
I would move to approve as Amy just stated verbatim.
Okay, Amy, would that be acceptable?
It's fine.
Okay, do I have a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, do I have any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please
Aye.
signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Amy, that motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much, Amy.
What else am I here for?
Okay, now, the next item on the agenda is again an enforcement order with regard to 16 Old Coach Lane, map 112, parcel A6-28, SE32-2527. Now, before we get into discussion on this, since we had a vote on this at our last meeting, I would like Amy just to discuss the status of this matter
Yep.
and what the potential options for us to go forward are.
Sure. Before we do that, can I get these other two plans back for the last one, please?
Oh, yes, of course.
I need them. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Okay, so for 6, what's under discussion and possible vote right now, we have potential order of conditions. So after our last meeting, in which the commission voted to approve under the Wetlands Protection Act but deny under the local bylaw for 16 Old Coach Lane, the applicant representative requested through me that the commission consider this revision and proposal before voting on the order of conditions. My suggestion to you tonight is process-based, because at the last meeting, you voted on the project, but you did not close the public hearing. So we technically, if you wanted to have more testimony on a project, you would have continued to a date certain at that meeting, giving public a knowledge that you were going to continue discussion on this meeting. So if you are so inclined, what I would recommend, if you are inclined to look at the revised plans provided by Ms. Hamlin, which my recommendation is that you do, that we do not have any testimony tonight, because we technically did not continue discussion until tonight, but that you continue it to April 5th. And that is if you are inclined to want to take more testimony and revisit this. And my recommendation is that you do.
Okay, thank you very much, Amy. Okay, I'd like to have comments from the board. We'll start again with Sophia.
I feel like I've had a little time to marinate on this, and I didn't feel great about, well, I found the whole thing confusing, frankly, but I don't want to lose the mitigation that we would potentially get. So I would like to see the new plan and talk about it in April.
Thank you. Dan?
No additional comment.
Mark?
I don't have anything to say at the moment.
Brad?
I guess a question for you, should we be commenting on the plan that was presented for mitigation tonight?
No, I would recommend you do not,
Okay, in that case,
just because we didn't officially continue it.
right,
So,
I think we're obliged to continue to April 5th, and that's all I'm gonna say.
Okay.
No comment.
I think we should continue also.
Okay. I'll just make one comment before I call for a motion. I have very mixed feelings on this, as you may remember from our discussion at the last meeting. But I will go along with the majority of the board. So I would like to call for a vote, and it sounds like the vote that we would, the positive vote that we would be looking for would be to continue this hearing to our meeting on April 5th. Do I have a positive motion on that?
Yes.
Okay, could you make the motion, Mark, please?
I would move that we continue the hearing till April 5th.
Okay, and this would be the hearing, Mark, on 16 Old Coach Lane, map 112, parcel A6-28, SE32-2527. Would you accept that as an amendment to your motion?
Please.
Okay, and
Second.
I have a second, and that's on the full amended motion, Alan?
Yes.
Okay, any discussion on the amended motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, and I'm just going to abstain. So the motion passes. We'll see you on April 5th. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is order of conditions. And I think, Amy, if I'm correct, we can skip the first one since we
Yes.
just took
Yep.
action on that parcel.
Yep.
So I would like, as we did at the last meeting, I'd like to ask a question. Do we want to take these all as a group, or do we want to take them individually? And it will depend on whether or not people had any comments on any of the individual orders of conditions. So let me start with, I'll start with Wayne on
I
that.
have no comment on them.
On any of them, Wayne? Okay, and so would you be in agreement to take them as a group then?
Yes.
Alan?
I'm in agreement, no comments.
Brad?
I think we have to separate the first and discuss that individually.
Okay, that's fine, Brad. Mark?
I would be in agreement.
Okay, Stan?
Same.
Sophia? Okay, then let's do the first one first, and then we can do the rest as a group. Okay, Brad, you had some comments on the first one?
Yeah, first, very quickly, special condition number 5, the time of year for those species would be January 15th to June 30th.
Oops, that was typo.
Yep,
Thank
so
you.
That's just a simple typo.
Yep.
The next one is broader.
Yeah.
I thought we had specific shellfish mitigation special conditions, and they're not that clear to me. I thought there was both a component to put out seeded bags of shellfish as well as seed. And I don't really, I see a reference to shellfish bags, but I don't see a lot of detail to what they should be.
I didn't add a lot of detail because the detail is really more on the approved plans, which are referenced in this order. And I didn't talk about shellfish seeding because though it was brought up that the applicant would be amenable to additional shellfish mitigation, which we usually require seeding of shellfish, at the end, we didn't include that.
Was it in their plan, their proposed plan?
To do the additional seeding.
Yeah.
They are online right now. I do not recall it being, it was an offer, from what I understand, if the commission wanted additional, but I don't believe it was part of their proposal. But I do see Todd Turcott from Coastal online.
Before we go to the applicant, my recollection is the same as you, Amy. It was mentioned,
Yeah,
but my recollection was it wasn't part of our vote
yeah.
on the matter at the last meeting.
Okay, so
That's my recollection
yeah,
anyway.
if it wasn't in the proposal that we voted on, or if it wasn't part of the conditions, then
Right.
it's
Yeah.
not included. So I guess I'm still looking for more specificity
Okay.
on the shellfish bags.
All right, we could do that.
What do we have for, seeding of the bags? Is there, in the plan, is there any detail on the amount of seed that'll be applied to the bags?
From my understanding, they were not going to pre-seed the bags, that they were going to rely on natural set that is in the river, that they were going to provide the medium for growth, but not pre-seed them, if you will.
Okay. All right, well,
And, I mean, again, if the chairman so wishes, there might be somebody online who can verify that.
Okay, is there somebody online who's to speak to this?
Yes,
issue?
Todd, Todd Turcotte from Coastal Engineering.
Okay, thank you. If you could
Don,
speak to-
Don unfortunately was at Waterways tonight, so he couldn't make both hearings.
Yeah.
But that is correct. It was not a actual seeding of the bags. It was more of a medium.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, any other comments, Brad?
well, I would like to say, outside of this review, it's just kind of a lost opportunity. Really not a lot of mitigation in the water coming from this project. So
Okay.
It's unfortunate.
Okay. Okay, are there any other comments? Any comments
Oh.
from the audience? Yes, Amy?
I had a comment, and so on special condition number 8, I left it in red. We talked about frequency of post-dredge surveys, but I don't recall what we actually decided on. And I did not have a chance to review the tape, which I still can, to do that. But we talked about, we have a post-dredge survey completed within 30 days of dredging, then 1 year after that date. There was a lot of discussion at the meeting about more more surveys done. Do you wanna
Yeah,
say, like, if,
Because I know I raised that question, what could
right,
silting back in?
Yeah.
And I know Don was talking about it, but I don't know if I don't remember what the answer was as far as the
We did talk-
surveys.
right. I can definitely look it up at the tape before we release this, but my recommendation was that, within 30 days, 1 year after, and then at the 5-year mark. To do to give it, I don't think annual is necessary, but I think a 30-day, a 1 year, and then a survey at the 5th year mark would be helpful.
Can I ask the representative of the applicant whether they'd be in agreement with that?
Yes, that would make sense. I think that was the intent, was it would be a longer time to see what type of sedimentation was occurring. And again, it's not just this area. We got to go a little bit beyond the dredge area to see what else is silting in also.
Okay. Okay, is there any further discussion? Any further discussion from anybody in the audience or online? Okay, hearing none, could I call for a positive motion on the order of conditions for 14 Mill Point Road, map 1, parcel J1-94, SE32-2494? Can anybody make a motion on this? Okay, then I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing and accept the order of conditions amended as our discussion this evening for 14 Mill Point Road, map 1, parcel J1-94, SE32-2494. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so that's all opposed?
One opposed.
One opposed? Okay. So that's
5 to 1.
5-1. Okay, so the public hearing is closed and the order of conditions is authorized to be issued for that matter. Now, as we discussed prior to taking up that matter, if somebody wants to make a motion on the remaining order of conditions that are on the agenda for this evening? Okay, hearing none, I will make a motion. I move that we close the public hearings and issue the order of conditions for the following properties. Number 1, 194 John Joseph Road, map 72, parcel G1-2, SE32-2522. Number 2, 7 Nuns Road, map 6, parcel C1-9, SE32-2524. Number 3, 10 Harbor Road, map 8, parcel S1-0, SE32-2519. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. The public hearings on all those matters and is now closed, and the order of conditions is now authorized to be issued. Okay, the next item on our agenda is an update on Wetlands Protection Act regulations. Amy, could you speak to that matter, please?
Yep, and I apologize, I needed to go, I have to print them off for you. So, just a quick background. At town meeting last year, the town authorized a change to the water dependent structures bylaw, and in that, the water dependent structures bylaw reads a lot like regulations in that it gets into very specifics in terms of depth and size requirements, where It really is more of how regulations typically read. We have, in our wetlands protection regulations, we also have a section on water-dependent structures. And after town meeting, we did not formally make the changes that were approved at town meeting to the bylaw to our regulations. So that is where what we're trying to rectify now. What we could do, I did put them in your Dropbox, but that was yesterday. I could go print off some, or we could take this up at the next meeting, and I can have printed copies in your packets. But, the substantive changes were, there were some definitions that we had included in the bylaw that we should have put in the regs, so I did. We should talk about changes to freshwater docks, in that ensuring that there's 3 feet of water at the end of these as well. The bylaw really was to change that, for marine docks and piers. It really didn't get into freshwater docks and piers. But what I tried to do is take the document that we approved at town meeting and incorporate that into our regulations for wetlands protection. Like I said, sorry, I forgot to print them out for you prior to the meeting. So I could either do that, it'll take a few minutes and we can go through it tonight, or we could put it on the next agenda.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Before I ask for comments from other board members, I think my preference would be that we have this put in our package for the next meeting
Fine.
and that we take this up at the April 5th meeting. But I'm perfectly open if members of the board have a different feeling. So we'll start with Sophia on this one. Do you have any comments?
Oh, that sounds good to me.
Okay, Stan?
No, I would put it off to the next meeting.
Okay, Mark?
I agree with you, Jim.
Okay, Brad?
I agree too. I've been through it. I think it's all right there, but it's a great chance for all the commissioners to read this and
Yes, I
Soak it
agree,
up.
Brad.
I agree.
Alan? Wayne?
I agree.
Okay, do we need a motion on that? Okay.
No, it's a
So
discussion.
then
We'll
we'll
put
see
it
that
on,
on the
we'll
agenda
put it
for the
on
next meeting.
April 5th.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is an update on ongoing land management tasks. And the first one is the Herring River study. Amy?
Finally got you a draft RFP, so, and it was late, but it's here. So I printed you-
Congratulations, Amy,
Oh,
thank you.
Thanks, well, it was a matter of time to find a little time. So what I did is, it's in your Dropbox, I did email it to you, but I also printed you copies. So the first, all the markups are the markups, but then towards the end, I put a of what it would actually look like without all those markups to it, what it would actually read like. But I'd like to go through a couple of the additional changes I made to it since we last were here. One of the changes I made was really in the title, study of ecological impacts to wetland resources. And I put in the title section, because we've been talking about a whole Herring River study, which we'll talk more about. But the focus of this was really on tidal portions of the Herring River as a result of, and I changed water dependent to man-made structures. And the reason I did that was because a water dependent, talked about structures such as bulkheads, revetments, in addition to docks, piers, and walkways. Docks and piers and raised walkways could be water dependent structures. Things like revetments are not necessarily what's considered a water dependent structure. So I changed the title from water dependent in the heading to man-made. You can tell me what you want to do. Then, per comments that you've made, I omitted some things from the tasks and put them on to additional study items, things like that. The study area, Originally, I had put it, the study area from the 28 bridge down south to Nantucket Sound. The commission said you wanted to go higher up the Herring River, into some of the more undisturbed marsh areas. There's a couple docks north of the Herring River, and there's also a lot of undisturbed marsh that could be potentially, control study area. So the northern limit I put as the pedestrian bridge over the Herring River. And that's shown in Appendix A. And again, like I said, what it could potentially look like is the last 2 pages of this document with all the changes that you've made and that I've made incorporated. So happy to take any comments you have.
Okay, before we go into comments on this specific thing, Amy, I'd just like to ask, there had been some recent press articles with regard to a different Herring River study.
Yep.
Could you speak to your knowledge of that study and how that relates to what we're proposing here?
Wouldn't relate to this piece. What
Okay.
it would relate to is the USDA, U.S. Department of Agriculture, through their Natural Resource Conservation Program, which is NRCS, and the Cape Cod Water Resources Protection District, I want to say. They approached the town a while ago, saying, they have federal funds to make improvements to resource areas. They're looking at fish passage, they're looking at habitat, they're looking at stormwater improvements, stuff like that. So the town came up with, myself, John Rendon, the harbor master, Heinz Proft, others in the town came up with a whole group of ideas that would, and then what we did is prioritize. So there's a couple that the Board of Selectmen recently supported, to go forward with what's called a letter of intent to the Natural Resource Conservation Service, for design. And that would be not this would be phase 2, Herring River is phase 2. Phase 1 would be the new culvert design underneath 124 that goes into Long Pond, which is part of the upper part of the Herring River. And then the second one is assistance with fish passage underneath Bank Street, helping the fish get back up into Grassy Pond. Then going forward, it is these people know that it is interesting to it is of interest of the commission as well as natural resources that we proceed with studying what I would call the freshwater section of the Herring River. And that would include the fish ladder going all the way north up to Long Pond. And this commission has said that you very much want to look at what can be done to improve passage, improve flow, water quality. So it is on their list going forward to include that. And I'm not going to talk about it right this second, but later on after we talk about our discussion topics tonight, I went to a very interesting meeting, Melissa and I, just this Monday up in Bridgewater, where grant funders at the local, state, and federal level were all there, basically telling about all the great opportunities we have right now for funding for various different projects. And we left there with our minds just full of the possibilities of what could be. And the takeaway message was that there is 2 to 3 times more funding right now than there has historically been. So we should go for some of it. So it wouldn't just be this USDA funded one potentially, but there might be other funding options. But that's what you saw in the paper. The Board of Selectmen recently approved us going forward and design is paid for, I will tell you 100%, by NRCS for the 2 projects going forward. The only thing the town will have to pay for, the town will have to take care of permitting, and a, can't remember if it's 70 or 75% of actual construction, if we get to that point, if it would be 70 or 75% is taken care of by the federal government, and the town would provide a match. And that could be another grant, doesn't have to be capital. So it's a great opportunity.
Thank you very much, Amy, for that
Sorry.
information. Now, with regard to the request for proposals, I mean, I think similar to the other thing, I would like to have the board have a chance to review this in detail.
Of course.
And potentially give any comments back at our next
Yeah,
meeting.
I wasn't looking for a vote
But
tonight.
however, with
Wanted
that
to
in
get it.
mind, if anybody has any comments that they would like to discuss tonight, I think it's perfectly appropriate
Mm-hmm.
for us to have that discussion tonight. So I'll go again around the room. Sophia?
I don't have any comments on this.
Okay. And you're reserving your rights for the next meeting, right? And we will all reserve our rights for the next meeting. Stan?
I'll reserve my rights to the next
Okay.
meeting.
Mark?
Me as well.
Brad?
I'll just add some thoughts while we're talking about
Go
it.
right ahead, Brad.
So, task number 2, that's something that I wrote quite a while ago. What I'll do is, I'll try to add some detail. To me, it's a little too thin right now to go to a bid package, so I'll spend some time between now and the next meeting adding a little more specifics to detail task number 2. And I'll go through this whole thing and just, it was basically an outline that was put forth. And so I'll, that's my task. I'll add some details to these things.
That'd be helpful, because this is not what I do on an everyday basis, so as much
That would
help as
be
I
very
can
helpful,
get.
Brad. And to the extent that you have time to get that done and get it so that Amy could put those revisions into our next package for the next meeting, that would be helpful.
Yeah,
If you have the time to do it.
That's easy for me, but also it would be helpful. Remember that group that got together, Amy?
Yeah.
Did they have any specific comments on this?
No, I haven't, literally I finished this today, so
Okay.
I was gonna send it to them. I wasn't expecting you to take action on this tonight,
Okay.
so
Well, if you want, then maybe
I'll send it to them.
I'll, yeah. I need probably a week.
It's fine.
Say a week from Friday, I'll get you the revisions. And under potential additional studies, to me, that's kind of conceptual right now. I wrote it, so it is. But I'll try to add a little more detail to that.
That'd be good.
For example, creation of a hydraulic model, that's super loose.
I know.
Let me-
I didn't know how to go
I
farther
know.
with it.
Let me spend a little bit of time trying to add a little detail to that, and that'll give you folks things to think about for the next meeting. Because potential additional items means basically stuff that we probably can't afford right now, but maybe we could have more money to add to there. And so I don't mind sending out bid packages that have a request to bid on options if we don't have the money right now. Some folks aren't so happy about
Yeah,
that.
I'm a little bit concerned about that, but we can discuss that later.
It's a common practice, at least in my shop it is. And,
Yeah. They're
my
optional.
experience has been that, and I did that for, big, for MBTA, Massport, et
Right.
cetera, that it can run you into problems.
I suppose if you're clear that you're going to evaluate the bid on the optional items, then I think you can cover yourself. So we can talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, we can discuss
Yeah.
that.
Or maybe the group wants to shift one of those items into the main body as,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's something, I'll just try to give you guys some more details.
That would be very helpful, Brian. Thank you. Alan?
Yeah, I just got a few questions, comments. I guess I wasn't on the board when you guys really took charge on this, to come up with this plan, this study. And, when I read the first paragraph of this, it talks about, the study is gonna basically look to see if there's an issue, what are the impacts, positive and negative. If this finding comes back, there's two options this finding's gonna come back as. There's no impacts, there's no problems, nothing, everything's good. Or it's gonna come back saying, we got all these problems and here we identified them. What is the charge of this commission with that being told to us? What are we gonna do? How are we gonna address these problems? And are we trying to find fault?
Let me help you with that issue, because again, you weren't on the commission at the time This all evolved out of proposed regulations that went in front of the Board of Selectmen as a proposal to go to town meeting. The board, it included at first a prohibition on docks on the Herring River. Second, it was then changed to a sort of a temporary, sort of moratorium on docks. And the request from the selectmen was that we do a study to sort of find out what the impacts are. And then from those impacts, we can then go back and revisit the regulations. So the outcome of this would be to take a look at what the real impacts of docks are in the Herring River, and then make a determination whether that would require a revision of our regulations going forward.
I think it would just better educate the commission as to, if the regs need to change and how they might need to
Right.
change.
And
There
also-
could be some positive things too. I mean, we
Right.
see certain types of shellfish actually tend to adhere to certain types of structures that we might be seeing, and others, some like it, so others don't. So there might be some positive things.
Right, and it would give us a substantive rationale to go in front of the Board of Selectmen and eventually to town meeting if we indeed do decide to vary our regulations.
Well, thank you very much for that clarification.
If I could add,
Go right ahead,
a
Brad.
secondary benefit, I think it would be raising public awareness for this jewel we have in this town of natural resources in the Herring River that needs help. And so this study in itself might not correct all those issues, it won't correct all those issues, but it should raise public awareness and maybe lead to a second investigation further up in the watershed.
As what Amy talked about earlier. And then the other only question I had is, I know we talked, it says here, the contractor in task 2 will receive a list of existing docks and control sites. They'll be notifying those owners that they're gonna go on their property, or?
This will have to all be done through a very public process.
I'm just
So
asking, I
the
assume
study,
that.
we'd have to do public notices during various points in the study. There'd have to be public meetings. Of course, the whole general public would be notified, but I think specifically the ones that are gonna be directly affected would have to
Yeah,
be
yeah.
notified, yes.
And I assume
We'd make
that,
sure
I
that.
just wanna make sure, that's
Yeah,
all.
and get that on the record that
Yes,
we would be
yes.
doing that.
All right, thank you.
I think
Okay.
it'd be a very public process. At the same time, the tide lands of the Commonwealth, so, the town staff can access that. You don't want to have that message without the message that we want to work with you.
Yeah.
And so you have that outreach, but there's no reason that staff or agents of the town can't access those tide lands to take measurements and do those types of things.
Yeah, that's correct, Brad. Wayne?
No comment.
Okay, so then I guess we will sort of defer this, any further discussion until our meeting on April 5th, Amy?
That's fine. Right now, our deadline for filing for April 5th is not till Monday because we have that extra week this month.
Yeah.
So I don't really know I know we got like one thing so far, so it's not a problem to put these things off.
Do you need a motion to that effect, Amy?
Nope.
Okay, then I think we'll just,
One more
yeah,
point.
go ahead.
Another
Sure.
question, Amy. Is me getting my comments to you a week from Friday, is that good? Will that fit into what people need?
If I could, I actually won't be here next Friday,
Okay.
but if you can get them to Melissa, then she can at least get them. I'm actually taking, my mom's coming, and taking a few days off to
Yep.
spend time with family. So I'm actually off Friday, and I'm off a couple of days early the next
Okay.
week. But yes, please still get them.
That's realistic from my end, I think I can.
Please get them to Melissa by Friday. She
Okay.
can put them in Dropbox, and when I usually end up taking my computer home and doing a few things here and there. So if I look at them, but I'll definitely have time to review before the meeting.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Okay, the next item on the agenda is minutes of previous meetings. Amy, which ones are ready for a vote now?
We have 2 sets. We have,
Yeah, I don't see the November 16th in the Dropbox.
we don't have, no, it's 2. We only have, so we don't have November 16th. We have October 19th and November 2nd.
Okay, so let's start with October 19th. Does anybody have any comments on the minutes for October 19th, 2022.
I would like it, just 2 minutes, please.
I'll give you 3, Brad.
All right, thank you. Yeah, very good minutes, really. Is Melissa still on them?
Yep.
Yeah, she does a good job.
So you have no
Yep,
comment?
No comments.
Okay, hearing no comments, do I have a motion to approve the minutes of our meeting of October 19th, 2022?
I move we accept the meetings of October 19th, 2022.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, the minutes of October 19th, 2022 are approved. Let's go to November 2nd, 2022. Brad, do you need?
I'm going through it right now.
Okay, I'll give you 3 minutes.
Thank you.
While Brad's going through it, does anybody else have any comments on the minutes for that meeting?
I have something, not on the
Okay,
minutes,
go
but
ahead,
on,
Amy.
but on one of the topics. Just so you know, I met with Eversource on 25 Lothrop Avenue last week. This was the illegal clearing near the substation that they did. And one of the things we wanted to do was look at how they were gonna keep that gravel from just eroding away into the wetland over time. So we looked at, basically, they're gonna probably use just old wooden walls, not to expand the footprint anymore from what it is, but to peel back some of that stone, put some wooden retainers in, just to keep the stone from getting farther into the wetland. Either that or some steel sheets or something like that, again, to keep it in. So I just wanted to update you on that.
Okay, thank you, Amy.
No comments?
Okay, hearing no comments from anybody, do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting of November 2nd, 2022?
I'll move to approve the minutes of November 2nd, 2022.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The minutes of November 2nd, 2022 are hereby approved. Is there any other discussion of any item that should come before the meeting tonight? Amy?
Just going back to what I had mentioned about the grants available, I'll send you the PowerPoint presentation that they had given. But there was the Municipal Vulnerabilities Program was there. There were 6 or 7 agencies there, all saying how much, what type of projects they're funding and when they're, and what's nice is that they're all not coming out at the exact same time, because there would be no way in heck that we would have time to do them. But there's a lot of opportunity coming for environmental restoration projects, looking for stormwater improvements, which the 28 culvert going into Witchmere Harbor just rings right in my head for that one. A lot of stuff, the Herring River, it would fit a ton of them, which is great because some of them require a match, but they could be other grants. But I'll send you that information. There's just, I'm going to be talking about it with administration, but I mean, I have some history and success with grant writing. Not a ton, but we have grant writers at the county who can help us. I don't want to see us miss this opportunity because this is, in my 16, 17 years of doing this, this is the most optimistic I've seen these grant programs with how much funding they have. And I don't know if it's because of, COVID funding or what's going on, but there's a lot of possibilities coming forward in the next year or two. So I'll send you that PowerPoint that they gave us, and we're gonna come, Melissa and I are gonna, we have a minute, come up with a spreadsheet of what the grants possibilities are, when they come out, when they're due, what type of projects they cover, and we'll provide you with that spreadsheet so you can decide which we may want to go after.
Yeah, that would be very helpful, Amy, and I think when you have that spreadsheet, we should have a formal discussion, at this
Yes.
meeting with
And the
regards-
selectmen would also have to be involved too, because to go forward on a town project.
Correct. Okay, anybody else? Alan?
I just wanted to ask about the Main Street bog. Are we gonna be considered for any joint discussion with the selectmen, or what's the status
So,
there?
that was on the selectmen's agenda the other night, and it was basically just an update that the attorneys from the school and the town are working towards it, and what the chairman of the Board of Selectmen said, that he will be setting up a joint meeting between the Conservation Commission and the Board of Selectmen.
Prior to town meeting?
I don't know the timeframe.
Okay. Any other questions, comments at all? Mark?
Question, the culvert on Punkhorn Road, is it likely that could fall in that funding opportunity? And would that be applicable in that case? Perhaps.
Potentially, that's private, so even though the water is public, the structure is a private structure, I believe, so, I don't know.
Yeah, I met with the owner yesterday on site. It needs to be replaced at some point.
Is there any way we can assist in that somehow?
Well, I know the program that Amy talked about earlier, the NRCS/County Conservation District, they want public lands. They really want it partnered with towns, and they don't often partner with private properties. I've advocated several times for the property owners in the area to try to get together a match, because a 25% match can go a long ways, or even take on engineering. So if you make a list of all the possible projects that could benefit aquatic resources in Harwich, it's on the list.
Would they be willing to turn that over to the town?
Yeah, it belongs there, and so, I think.
Just that section, would they be willing,
Yeah.
would they be
By
willing to?
Bates's old
Yeah.
house?
Yeah, it's Donnie
Yeah.
Bates's house.
So that used to be Squatters Bad. I didn't know that was Punkhorn, but.
Cahoon
they changed
Canal.
it. No, I know that.
They changed all
They
that.
changed the name, I guess.
Cahoon's Canal, some
Yeah,
people
right,
call it.
Yeah, no, it is, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the NRCS, they give money out to private agricultural entities, so I don't see why they wouldn't help on that, or the USDA.
This specific program is got legislation that's pretty clear what they can do, and
There might be others. There was a lot there they're really big on culvert replacement right now.
The property owners could give an easement to
Right.
the town, and then all of a sudden, boom,
We would
it's their.
take care of it.
They want to drive over the culvert, and so that would be in their best interest, I
Yeah.
think. But either way, it's a good idea, because it's certainly on that list of places you would like to fix. It contributes a lot of sand to the herring run there, and at some point, it's gonna fail. I've been in it a lot, digging it out every year. I spend time digging it out, and it's really, it's a problem. But it's tough. It's not public property.
Any other questions or comments?
Question.
Sophia?
Did, the azalea culvert, did that come before the board?
Mm-hmm. There's a determination, yeah.
Just curious.
Yep. Because it's never understood that. I mean, I understood that, the river itself is obviously state, but, how is MassDOT involved in that bridge? I thought Azalea was
Town road.
a town road.
See, I don't know the
But
details.
it's a MassDOT project.
It didn't come before the commission.
Yes, it did.
How?
Yeah. It came in front of us as an RDA.
Really?
Yep.
I must have missed that one. Because I thought it got an emergency exemption.
No.
Which they can get under the Wetlands Protection Act.
I think they came under the bylaw only. It was an exemption for, I don't remember. Let me go back and check, but yes.
I must have missed that hearing.
I don't remember that.
How long ago was that?
I don't remember that.
I don't remember.
I don't remember either.
Yeah, I never saw it. I would have had lots of comments.
Oh, let me look.
I'd be curious to know when it was. I don't recall it. I would have thought I would have remembered that.
I thought they declared emergency, which they can do under the Wetlands Protection Act.
Yeah, but I would have had to written an emergency certification. I didn't do it for that one. Let me go back,
One other-
because I know Heinz and I reviewed it.
One other quick thing I noticed, observation everybody might know, but Great Western Road, the town, it looks good what they did. They took up the old
I know,
retaining,
yeah, bollards or whatever.
guardrails. It looks nice along the Heron River, but are they planning to put anything else back?
I don't know.
Pretty
Can ask 'em.
dangerous situation.
Yeah, because the car can go off.
Yep,
I know the trees have grown up significantly. There's tree buffer there now, but that was never there, but it looks nice in my opinion, but I didn't know what
I
the
can
plan
ask,
was.
I can ask them.
Okay, any other comments, questions? Okay, hearing none, can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion, we adjourn the meeting.
Okay, can I have a second on that?
I'll second it too.
Okay. I have a
Wayne
motion on the floor
motioned and Mark
and a
seconded.
second.
Are you
Is
trying to
it-
break a record? Is that what's going on
Is,
here?
is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye.